I think this best sums up my feelings about the season finale and the whole show. Man, what a ride. I admit that when I saw the trailer for X-Men 97, I wasn't impressed. The animation looked janky, it wasn't clear what the story would be, and given Disney's recent track record with franchises, if the show looks like it'd be hit or miss, it'd probably be a miss. That turned out not to be the case with X-Men 97. The show is awesome. There were some rough patches mid-season, mostly with episodes 4 and 6, but episode 5 proved that showrunner Bo DeMaio and his writers knew what they were doing. And every episode since 7 has been a banger, and the finale is no exception. It hits all the points it needs to, shows us why Xavier is so important, shows the X-Men living up to their standards, and answers some lingering questions about Bastion. There are some weird parts in the episode, but in general, it's a solid finale to a great season. Now, I meant to mention this a while ago and kept forgetting to do it. The opening for each episode changes based on what happens in the episode. In this one, there's a quick shot of a young Xavier and Magneto fighting in Vietnam. Another cool part is that the opening includes elements that were meant for the original show's opening but got scrapped. The scenes with the Phoenix, Asteroid M, and Cable were storyboarded back in the 90s. That just goes to show how much attention and care went into making X-Men 97. The finale opens up with a flashback to Xavier, Magneto, and Nam, where the pair reveal to each other that they're mutants. I like the banter in the scene because it showed how jaded Magneto was due to his experience in the Holocaust, and how that contrasts with Xavier's optimism even though they're in the middle of a pointless war. The thing to keep in mind is that it's only been about 25 years since World War II, so Magneto's attitude makes sense. He's seen the worst humanity has to offer. But again, it's the contrast with Xavier that makes the scene so interesting, because Xavier's optimism is contagious. He's able to pull Magneto away from his pessimism by being so genuine. That is Xavier's true power. He could change people's minds through force if he wanted to, but instead he does it with his words. However, words don't always work. And we get to see this in the scene as Magneto realizes that the moment isn't real, it's just a memory. The pair are still on Asteroid M. Magneto considers Xavier's move a violation, but Xavier still tries to reason with him. He just wants Magneto to undo what he did to Earth's magnetic field, but Magneto won't budge. The cool part about the scene is that it shows what type of person Xavier is. He just watched Magneto torture and nearly kill one of his teammates. By all rights, Xavier should just take over Magneto's mind. But he still thinks that there's hope for his old friend, so instead he tries every angle he can think of, just like he did in the last episode, to get Magneto to willingly do the right thing. And it's only when Xavier's tried everything that he takes over Magneto's mind and resets the magnetic field. Now, this is where I kinda call bullshit, because whatever Xavier did to make all the power in the world turn back on, that's not how electromagnetic pulses work. EMPs destroy electrical components. Some of them may be salvageable, but most of them aren't. Which means that even if the field was restored, the power wouldn't just turn back on. All those burnt out parts would need to be replaced. I know it sounds petty to be bothered by that when I'm totally fine with the dude controlling magnetism, but we know how EMPs work, so the show can't just ignore it. That wouldn't make any sense. Kind of like Silver Samurai standing on the top of a building watching this happen. I love the scenes with the different Marvel characters dealing with the aftermath of the attack, but how does standing on a building during a blackout help anyone? What, is he waiting for a kaiju? It's a cool shot, but I don't get it. Now, the side effect of Xavier turning on the power is that all the Sentinels work again, and Bastion takes full advantage of that. He captures the X-Men, breaks the power dampener, and starts monologuing about speeding up his plan. As we learned from Cable, in the future, humans get infused with a techno-organic virus. Bastion decides to do that now to get around any humans empathizing with the mutants. He also drops an interesting piece of info. He thinks Xavier refused to help him when he was a kid. He says that his mother begged Xavier for help, but in the previous episode, Xavier says that Bastion's mother refused his help. So it looks like Bastion's mother lied to him about Xavier, and we don't know why. Normally, you see someone use this as a source of resentment to explain why Bastion hates mutants, but the show does the opposite. Bastion thinks fate was on his side, protecting him from what he calls equal opportunity suicide. Storm tries to reason with Bastion, but he throws it in her face.
Did you just try to appeal to my humanity? Look at me.
That pause, and then Bastion realizing that Storm actually does see his humanity, that's the stuff right there. That's how you do it. You don't have to say anything, you don't have to bludgeon people over the head with it, just that pause. Perfect. So, Bastion sends out the Prime Sentinels to attack and convert all humans, and we get some more cool cameos of Marvel characters. I do need to add that it's weird that none of these heroes are trying to help the X-Men. We see Captain America and Iron Man, who's been in the suit the whole time and hasn't bothered to share his tech with anyone, protecting President Kelly, but shouldn't they and the other Avengers be trying to get to Asteroid M to take out Magneto? Better yet, shouldn't they get Thor to undo the damage to the electromagnetic field? He's fully capable of doing it, so it's weird that he doesn't try. This is one of the problems with the shared universe of characters. At some point, someone who's not in the main story could probably help, but because it's not their show, they're nowhere to be found. Anyway, while the Prime Sentinels attack the world, Bastion gets Sinister to force Cable to tell him how many times Cable tried to stop his future from happening. It was 200. Bastion decides that the best thing to do is to kill Cable because he's not gonna stop, but Sinister goes typical supervillain and wants to keep Cable alive for himself. There's just one problem. Hell hath no fury like a phoenix reborn. I knew we'd get a phoenix scene. There were too many deep cuts in the show for that not to happen, and it was already hinted at in the opening a couple of times. To say that Jean clowns them would be an understatement. She repairs the broken dampener and pops it on Bastion's head like it's nothing, shutting down all the Prime Sentinels, including the ones flying in the air, so I guess all those people are dead. But what she does to Sinister? Jesus Christ. She pulls out all the mutant DNA he's added to his body and leaves him this withered old man. He goes off to Morph and he's like, "Show me my face." And Morph changes and goes, "Looks same to me." And Sinister just runs off. Rogue's pettiness must be contagious because everybody's taking cheap shots now, including Bastion. The remnants of the Phoenix power leave Jean and the X-Men think they can catch their breath, but Bastion comes back, pimp slaps them away, then rips off Cable's arm, eats him with it, then absorbs it, turning himself into a super cyborg, and then catches a serious case of the fuckets and is like, "You know what? I'm just gonna wipe out all of you. No more mutants, no more humans, you done, son." How's he gonna do this? Take out the gravity drive in Asteroid M and let the base fall to Earth. That's an Extinction level event. Keep that in mind just in case some people decide to nuke the asteroid. They'd have to know it'd fall to Earth and kill all life on the planet, but no one would be stupid enough to do that. Anyway, at this point, there's nothing the X-Men can do to stop Bastion. He's too powerful, so the only option is to warn the others on Asteroid M that Bastion is coming. But Xavier cuts in to tell him that he's trying to restore Magneto's mind, and this is another moment we see how important Xavier is in guiding the X-Men. Cyclops is fine with leaving Magneto to his fate, but Xavier isn't willing to give up hope. For him, there's no saving humanity without saving Magneto. Basically, no one gets left behind. For the people who complained about the X-Men not being positive enough, this is why. It's not normal to do what Xavier does. No normal person will keep trying to reason with someone hell-bent on not changing their mind. This is how the X-Men responded to Genosha. Once it was clear that humans couldn't be reasoned with, the X-Men did what any normal person would do and moved on. Xavier's approach is to prepare to move on, but also to keep trying to reason with people. Even if all of them can't be reached, maybe one of them can, and as long as that's a possibility, Xavier will keep trying, even if that means helping an enemy. Now, I freely admit that is not the way I think, and I don't think Xavier's ideal is all that rational, but hope isn't always a rational ideal. It is, however, a way to prevent becoming like Magneto, Bastion, and the other villains in the show. And it's seeing Xavier continue to hope and continue to try that will inspire the positivity in the X-Men that people complained they lacked. That said, it's still weird that people got pissy that the X-Men wouldn't try to reason with folks who just tried to wipe out their entire species. Meanwhile, Bastion makes his way to Asteroid M and tries to take out the core, but doesn't get far because Rogue comes in to whoop that ass. And whoop it she does, literally off the asteroid onto the blue area of the moon, right into what's left of Apocalypse's base. Now, part of the fight takes place in space, and we see both Rogue and Roberto flying around just fine. The show doesn't explain this, but both their power sets let them survive in space. The blue area of the moon also has an Earth-like atmosphere, so that's why they can breathe. It would have been nice if the show had explained that. Back on Earth, Earth's government see the fight and decide to unleash the Magneto protocols. In the comics, the protocols use satellites to shift Earth's magnetic field. For the show, they borrowed a page from Batman vs. Superman and made the protocols nukes. They plan to nuke Asteroid M, killing Magneto and the X-Men. T'Chaka, who's the Black Panther in the show, warns them against this, but he's the only holdout. The rest of the UN okays the protocols because they think violence is the only language mutants understand. I saw some people getting testy about this scene, mostly because only Black Panther sides with the mutants. Ironically, these are the same people who said that the Executioner was right about mutants, that mutants are dangerous, even though that's not what he said, and that people should listen to and consider his position. I love this kind of hypocrisy because the people who do it are teetering on the edge of self-awareness about the immorality of their ideas, and it's fascinating to watch. It's also interesting because the show plays out like many events in the past, so the negative reaction kind of implies that some people don't know their history, especially how majority groups treat the minority groups they fear and hate. At any rate, Kelly signs off on launching the nukes, and Cap just shakes his head. It's not like he's a leader of a team that could do anything to help, so what else can he do? Meanwhile, Xavier keeps trying to restore Magneto's mind. Eric is slowly remembering his past, but gets stuck on not remembering his parents' faces, and the trauma of his experiences during the Holocaust overwhelm him. Back in space, Bastion takes out Rogue and Roberto and heads back to Asteroid M, and we get another glorious fight scene. I've got to give it up to the animation team again because everybody gets to look like a badass, even Jubilee.
What will you do, child? Slay me with the 4th of July?
The answer is yes. She's gonna slay, and when she's done with you, your new name will be Two-Face. But he still survives this. The future tech from Nimrod and Cable make him damn near unstoppable. He starts monologuing again, and then a Sentinel arrives. He thinks it's there for him, but it's actually the rest of the X-Men. Beast stomps on Bastion with the Sentinel, but Bastion is still too strong. They simply have no way to overpower him, so Cyclops tells the team to stand down. And they're surprised, but Cyclops says that they should practice what they preach. He tries to reason with Bastion like Xavier would, but Bastion won't budge, and he points out that neither will humans, and then he points to the nukes headed right at them. The nukes hit the gravity core, sending Asteroid M falling towards Earth. Bastion starts to fall into the explosion, but Cyclops tries to help him. I like the way this happened because it's not clear if Bastion is actually letting Cyclops help him, or if he's just trying to get in one last hit. Either way, the force is too strong, and Bastion gets pulled into the explosion. Speaking of getting pulled in, Jubilee gets pulled into outer space and falls, screaming, towards the planet, but Roberto saves her. How in the hell is she still alive? Roberto's powers are self-sustaining, so he doesn't need to breathe, but Jubilee does. She also needs to keep warm. She's not able to do that in space, so how is she still alive? They're literally watching the base fall to Earth. They're talking the whole fucking time. How? There's no air, you can't hear the sound. I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. I can believe that this dude can float in space with his superpowers, but not that they're talking, or that this girl is still alive. It just doesn't make any sense. Also, while we're here, can I just point out the stupidity of the Magneto protocols? Whatever's in orbit around the planet has a chance to fall out of orbit onto the planet. So if you fire nukes at a massive asteroid, if the blast doesn't destroy the asteroid, all those rocks will fall down. Even if none of them are still big enough to wipe out all life, the scale of destruction the fragments would do would be just as bad. If the whole point was to protect humanity, well, you failed. You're gonna kill thousands, if not millions of people by nuking Asteroid M. So now, the X-Men have to figure out a way to stop the base from falling on the planet. On Earth, President Kelly and the other idiots facepalm, but again, I have to ask why Iron Man and Cap are just standing there. I get Cap not doing anything because he can't fly, but Iron Man can. He can help. The same with Thor and Doctor Strange. In fact, there are a bunch of Marvel characters who could lend a hand, but none of them do anything. I know the reason is because this is an X-Men show, but you can't show cameos with these guys and then have them sit it out when they could easily help. Beast ends up creating a plan to stop the asteroid, but the team is still likely to die, so Jean and Scott telepathically visit Cable to have a moment. The others try their best to slow the base's descent, but it barely works. However, Xavier is finally able to pull Magneto back together, and Magneto uses his power to stabilize Asteroid M and save the day. And then the world thinks the X-Men died, but you already know that's not how this ends. 6 months pass, and Bishop finally reappears, telling Forge that the X-Men are actually trapped in time. They don't really explain how this happens, they just kind of gloss over it. It really doesn't make any sense, but I'm gonna let it slide, simply because of how cool it turns out to be. Jean and Scott get flung into the future where they meet Mother Ascani and a young Cable. The rest of the X-Men get sent to ancient Egypt, where they bump into a certain mutant by the name of In Sabanur. And in the post-credit scene, we get this perfect teaser.
So much pain, my children. So much death.
What a way to end the season. There's a lot that's been set up for the next season, probably well into the third season. And that's a reminder of what Disney lost in Fire Rainbow DeMaio. He had something going here, and I don't know how much of that they'll keep now that he's gone. What I do know is that unless what he planned was god-awful or full of too many deep cuts, Disney would be foolish not to follow DeMaio's vision. People love the show. It's gotten over. There's no reason to mess with that. Like I said at the start of the video, I didn't have high hopes for the show, and it's great to see that the show proved me wrong and nailed it. I hope that the positive reaction to the show gets Disney to push more in this direction. They don't need to reboot every old show, although I would love to see a proper ending to the 90s Spider-Man show. But I think the tone of X-Men 97, the pacing, the care that was taken with the storytelling, those things make for more entertaining shows. Tell better stories, get people invested in them, and the shows and movies will eventually get over. Hopefully they don't ruin the magic DeMaio brought with this season, because the show is still building to its peak, and it's very easy to knock it off course. I don't want that to happen, because this is the most fun I've had watching American animation in a while. We'll see when Season 2 comes out. And remember, Disney, bringing DeMaio back is still an option. But what do I know? I'm just some